トビデオ
Previously on
京都ビデオ
It has to take a few stumbling baby steps before going into a full-blown sprint. Not the perfect beginning, but definitely an alright start. But luckily for you and me, things do get better. Next year, baby! Hey, guess what? It's next year, baby. Out of all the videos I had planned for this year, this one was the one I was looking forward to the most. Not only do I get to talk about Slayers, one of my all-time favorite franchises in anime at length, but I get to talk about the best season of Slayers, bar none. Where the first season of Slayers did a good job in introducing us to the world of Slayers and its characters in an entertaining fashion, Slayers Next takes everything great about the last season and perfects it. I'm not even going to bother trying to temper my adoration for this season. Slayers Original helped me develop my love of old anime, Slayers Next helped cement that love. And to not sound like a frothing at the mouth fanboy, yes, I will concede that there are some flaws to this season, just like with every other anime. No anime is perfect after all, with some exceptions. But here, the flaws are completely outweighed by pounds upon pounds upon pounds of pure anime goodness. To me, Slayers Next is the Slayers franchise at its pinnacle. But as much as I would love to spend the entire video singing of its praises, it would not answer the question of why do I sing of its praises so loudly and so frequently. What is it about Slayers Next that makes it stand head and shoulders above the season that came before and after it? Well, we can't just stand around and wait for the answer, so take us away, Lena.
You guys are free to have a fight anywhere you want to, but interfering with an innocent girl's meal is unforgivable. And if it happens to be Lena Inverse's meal, you're lucky to be alive.
First, let's talk about what exactly has changed in the transition between seasons. A good place to start would be the animation. At first glance, it doesn't appear there have been any major improvements. There are still plenty of cost-saving techniques that range from the typical to the laughable. At the same time, you barely notice those most of the time because going through the entire season after Slayers Original, the overall animation just feels a lot livelier. It's apparent in the big set-piece moments where they pour a lot of their time and resources into. The way they make use of elemental effects and impacts makes it so you can almost feel the magical energy crackling through the TV screen. Compare when Lena first cast her trademark Dragon Slave in this season over last season, and the differences are night and day. They really emphasize this magical power by its well-animated flames and energy, followed by its precision and destructive power of a tactical nuke. Don't look too close, kids, you might find your eyebrows missing. But while spectacle is nice and all, what really benefits from the livelier animation is the comedy. The animation in the more jokier scenes have a lot more of this madcap feel to them. There's this sort of relaxed nature to this animation, and the animators are not afraid to play fast and loose with the models if it can make a scene funnier. Of course, that does lead to some moments where a character can look really weird looking in a dramatic scene, but that's neither here nor there. As for the characters, their personalities have been more or less figured out, but they still manage to fit in some adjustments. Lena is still very much everyone's favorite hot-headed, greedy little sorceress with a bottomless stomach. Perhaps even more so. They really turned up her temper and overall prickliness for this season, and it really shows in the comedic parts of the show.
Oh-ho-ho! If that's how you want it, then let's get it on! Alright,
What should we do? Let's leave this stupid fight to her.
Gowry has most assuredly lost some brain cells in the transition between seasons. He's still the clueless dolt who can occasionally get on Lena's wavelength to execute a plan, but there are a lot of moments where he just becomes Goku with a sword.
Can I ask one question? What's a fiancé? Is it a pickle?
Surprisingly, the one who has changed the least is Amelia. She's still the gullible, justice-loving princess she is, and still a source for some good laughs.
For a criminal investigation, you need perseverance and guts, as well as a justice-loving heart! Amelia, please come down.
Conversely, the one who has changed the most is Zelgadis. Not that his personality has changed, he is still grumpy and trying desperately to project an air of coolness about him.
Don't worry, I struck you with the backside. Oh, sorry. This is a double-edged sword.
It's more that his position in the story has changed. Using his previous personality as a mysterious, heartless swordsman who has to act as the occasional straight man for the rest of the group, the anime continually puts him through humiliation after humiliation after humiliation, and it is hilarious.
Maybe we could give him artificial recessive mouth to mouth.
It's the only way.
But enough about the minor improvements between seasons. What actually is the reason why Slayers Next is considered by many to be the peak of Slayers? Boy, is that gonna be a long answer. In 26 episodes, it's really hard to pin down what makes Slayers Next so good when discussing it as a whole. So in order to fully elaborate on why Slayers Next is so great, I'm gonna do something I kinda did with the last Slayers video, summarize the entire anime from beginning to end, and point out what makes certain scenes work. We first start our brand new season with a 2-episode mini-arc that serves 3 purposes: getting the original 4-man band back together, establishing the main goal of the season, and introducing us to 2 new characters who will be important for this season. The whole first episode is mainly devoted to Lina and Gowry meeting up with Emilia and Zelgadis in the Kingdom of Zona, where they immediately become wrapped up in a sinister plot by the king to take over the Kingdom of Seirun. It's a wacky first episode that's mainly there to get the party assembled, and is wrapped up quite neatly with Lina blowing up the entire kingdom with a dragon slave just to stop an ancient out-of-control golem. So we start things out with a bang, you see. But the real purpose of this episode is to serve as the introduction of the first new major character of the season, Princess Martina.
It's been a long time, Lina Inverse.
Who are you again?
The princess of the now ruined Kingdom of Zona, Martina's role is to be the constant thorn in Lina and the gang's collective side for most of the journey. While given the motivation of wanting revenge on Lina for destroying her kingdom, Martina's plight is the biggest source of comic relief in a series that's full of them, all thanks to her general personality. She's spoiled, fickle, incredibly petty, and not exactly playing with a full deck. Think Princess Booberina, only infinitely more pathetic and ineffectual. Martina is never truly seen as a threat by Lina and the rest because she is hilariously weak, only really being able to cast small annoying curses and nothing more. This is due in no small part to the fact that she derives her powers from Lord Zomogustar, a monster lord that she, no joke, made up on her own.
Zomogustar?
You know about him?
I thought I knew most legends and folktales pretty well, but I've never heard of him.
Zomogustar is a name I made up myself!
Like I care!
And the only way she even gets defeated is either through her own undoing or her deciding to stupidly push Lina's buttons. A character like Martina could easily be seen as an annoying comic relief whose sole purpose is to start conflict, but she works because A, she's not pointless as we'll see later on, and B, she's just the perfect goofball to bounce off the other goofball Lina and lead to some very funny moments between the two. This is especially helped by Rachel Lillis using both a combination of her Misty voice and her Jessie voice to create a performance that's snotty and arrogant yet full of childish petulance.
This is all Lina's fault! I wanted to get back at her so much! I can't stand it!
Episode 2 is when we finally get the plot in motion. It turns out the reason why Zelgadis was in Zona in the first place was to get close to the king and see if his fabled Book of Zona was a manuscript of something known as the Clare Bible.
I'm risking everything to find the Clare Bible, a mysterious book containing the deepest secrets of sorcery. From another world entirely.
It turns out that Zelgadis is still looking for a way to turn him back into a human, and he figures that the source of all magical knowledge is his best bets. The party then gets word from a priest that a piece of a Clare Bible manuscript might be held in a bandit camp nearby. And it is here where we are introduced to our second and far more important new major character of the cast, Zelos.
Who are you?
You needn't worry about me. You can trust me. You see, I am Zelos, mysterious priest.
Zelos is a very important character. not just in this season, but in the entire Slayer's lore. But we can't know why that is right now, because Zealous' overall character in the beginning is that he is a figure shrouded in mystery and trickery. This is firmly established in this episode, where we are introduced to who exactly Zealous is without knowing really all that much about him. He's a cagey, capricious figure who refers to himself as the Trickster Priest, and always appears to be teleporting in and out of nowhere to share his own commentary on the events unfolding with the Slayer's crew. The trickster aspect is most definitely put into practice in his debut, with him telling Lena about the bandit camp and then immediately telling the bandits about their carefully crafted plan, so the group ends up walking to a trap. All just so he can steal the manuscript for himself.
So you were just using us like pawns?
Like pawns? I guess so, yeah.
And if you think that Zealous is just another trickster anti-hero like the rest of the group, the final minutes of the episode all but states that whatever his motivations are, they are anything but heroic.
Hey, Zealous! What do you really want from us?
Now that is a secret.
By the way, Zealous' dub voice was done by David Moo. If that name does not ring a bell, here's a hint.
We sure did pick one fool of a captain to join forces with, Zolo.
Yep, the very same guy who would take a role on a dub that was so poorly received it caused him to retire from voice acting. Which is a bit unfair, because this dub shows that with a good director, Moo has the chops to turn in a pretty decent performance that fits a character. That nasally, smug, I know something you don't know voice just fits a character like Zealous perfectly, especially when he delivers his catchphrase.
Now that is a secret.
What?
So now that we have everything set up and we have a goal that our heroes can begin pursuing, it's time to get this show on the road. Hey! Remember back when Lena and Gowrie first met up and how they were going to Atlas City before they got sidetracked by, well, everything? Whatever happened to that? In case you forgot, the last season skipped over adapting the second volume of the original novel, which is why Lena and Gowrie never end up going to Atlas City in that season, even after they spend so much of the first few episodes establishing that's their destination. So to seemingly make up for that, here's a compressed adaptation of that story with the added bonus of Amelia and Zelgadis in tow because they weren't in the original. I think out of all the arcs in this season, this one is the weakest. They managed to bang out a complete story in just 3 episodes, but in doing so, they don't really give the story much room to breathe. To summarize, the gang ends up splitting into groups of 2 because they can't agree on where to go out to eat, and so each party is asked to be the bodyguards for 2 sorcerers who are vying for an important position at the Sorceress Association. With neither side realizing that they are fighting each other, things soon devolve into an anonymous prank war. But since all of them want to get paid, they all decide to settle by one-on-one duel. Once they meet up and realize what exactly is going on, low-level slimes start coming out of the sorcerers' homes and begin attacking the city. Lena and the others put a stop to this and the sorcerers are arrested. Realizing that they won't get paid if their contractors are in prison, the team decides to prove their innocence. They are told that the only person in Atlas City who could perform such a large-scale summoning would be the head of the Sorcerers Association, House of Form the White. And given that House of Form's mansion was the only one untouched by the beast, it's no mystery as to who is behind it all. When they get to House of Form's manor, they find out that House of Form is indeed the one behind all this and that he has a pact with a monster named Sagrum to become immortal. Sealing House of Form in ice so they can buy themselves some time to formulate a plan, Lena realizes that a device called a Pledge Stone is needed so that a human and a monster can make a pact. Therefore, they need to find the Pledge Stone and destroy it. After a couple of fight scenes, Lena and Gowrie come across Sagrum, who says the reason why he gave House Form immortality is because he's looking for powerful humans to join the side of the monsters, and he's hoping Lena will do the same when that time comes. Lena refuses outright, but soon discovers what House of Form's true ambitions are. He has been kidnapping people and draining them of their life energy so he can resurrect his lover Rubia from the dead, and Amelia and Zelgadis are due to become his latest victims. Needing to think fast, Lena discovers that the Pledge Stone is Sagrum's mask and is able to destroy the mask. House of Form soon begins to age as the immortality leaves his body, but realizes that Rubia has become animated with the life energy. However, she is nothing more than a soulless shell, and the only thing she can do is mouth the words, "Kill me." House of Form realizes that there's only one thing left to do.
Forgive me, Rubia.
an arc with plenty good fights and a well-executed tragic ending, but it's all held back by the rushed pacing of it all. It could have benefited from having an extra episode to better space things out, because we go from we don't know how to beat this guy to I know how to beat this guy within 2 minutes of the same episode. Also, while the arc does come into play later on in the season, it feels a little tacked on to the overall narrative at first. Like, Zelos only appears for just a minute to confirm a deduction made by Lena and immediately pieces out. It's almost as if he's just there to remind you just what the overarching narrative still is while they figure out this little situation in Atlas City.
Oh, I guess I know a few sorcerer's secrets, but I don't know why you're so hot on finding the Clare Bible or why Sagram's afraid of you.
You needn't worry about that.
But luckily for us, the next arc does what Atlas City attempted to do, but better. After 2 singular episodes consisting of a fishing trip and Martina cursing Lena to feel the exact amount of pain she inflicts on someone,
Hey! What do you think you're doing?
we then get to the arc that turns Slayer's necks from an 8 to a 9, the Ragna Blade arc. The gang makes it to Amelia's hometown of Seirun, only to find it completely deserted. They get to the palace and discover the reason why that is. Amelia's father, Prince Phil, has been assassinated.
No! It's not true!
Princess!
It couldn't have happened! Daddy couldn't lose to evil! He wouldn't have left me!
Amelia!
Amelia is hit very hard by the death of her father, a man she loves and admires. But Lena, for all her prickliness, is the one who takes it on herself to cheer up her inconsolable companion.
I'm gonna find the guys who did this to Phil, and then I'm gonna make them pay.
We're going to be seeing a lot of moments like this scene because this season is really devoted to showing us that Lena, for all her selfishness and ornery nature, still cares about the people she considers her friends. They may annoy her and she may annoy them, but when the chips are down, they are all there for each other, and that Lena will do anything for them. Remember this. But the sad times don't last too long because Gordon's alive! Turns out Prince Phil survived his assassination attempt and faked his death just so he can see what the suspect's next move would be. Heading back to the palace with this bit of good news in tow, Lena and the gang end up meeting Prince Phil's brother and second in line to the crown, Christopher, and his totally not suspicious court magicians, Konzel and Mazinda. Lena immediately suspects something's rotten in the state of Seirun, but since she has no proof that the two are behind the plot, she can't do anything about it. Don't know why she would. Bootleg Kefka and Mommy Doms R Us look completely on the level. But it looks like she won't have to do too much investigating, as Lena and Amelia immediately get a letter from Christopher's son, Alfred, who confesses that Christopher is the one behind everything and that he is hoping he can convince his father to turn himself in. But before Lena and Amelia can run off and give this information to the rest of the team, they are immediately beset by Konzel and Mazinda, who reveal themselves as monsters. After a fight with Mazinda in another dimension, Lena and Amelia are able to fend them off while widening the protective barrier around the kingdom. Unfortunately, this comes at an unforeseen cost for Lena.
What the? I can't use my spells.
What?
I can't use my spells? What in the world am I gonna do?
So with her powers sealed, Lena is forced to go off into the mountains alone to find a magic doctor that helps her regain her powers, which she has to do alone because she needs Gowry, Amelia, and Zelgadas to keep Phil under lock and key, just in case Konzel and Mazinda darken their doorway again. No problem so long as she doesn't run into any unsavory characters.
Step right up, folks! Step right up! Cheap prices here, folks. 1 silver piece and get a custom-made curse.
Oh, it looks like we're on a collision course for wackiness! Zelos decides to invite himself to join Lena on her journey because he can, and Martina also decides to join because she has been following the trickster priest around like a lost boy-hungry puppy.
Oh, brother.
She wants to be with her man. Petty revenge on Lena is just the bonus. So the gruesome threesome finally make it to the magic doctor, and look, I know I may praise the dub of Slayers, perhaps overpraise it a bit, but this is where I gotta comment on something. So the magic doctor, it turns out, is a little girl named Kira, and this is what she sounds like.
So your magic's been sealed, huh? Oh my, that's really terrible! Oh, didn't I tell you? Wow, that candy sure looks good.
thank Mr. Spell for putting that on for us. Thank you, Mr. Spell.
What is with that cadence? There is no in-universe justification of why she sounds like she's doing a Fred Schneider impression 24/7. I'm pinning this all on the director, by the by, because this character is also voiced by Rachel Lillis, who, I remind you, is playing it up to the rafters not 10 feet away in all these scenes. So it's weird when you hear her two performances of her chewing the scenery alongside her playing Little Miss Mario's early years.
So, what's a Claire Bible anyway? You need to ask. It's a book about potty training.
But back to the plot at hand. So the medicine that was gonna unseal Lena's powers gets ruined thanks to Martina being an idiot, and it also has the unintended side effect of luring minions of Konzel and Mazinda to their location. Since Lena can't do much and Martina is useless, it's up to Zelos to finally step up and show us what he's got. He's able to dispel the minions with a strong spell which had its powers increased by his talismans. Talismans which Lena immediately pawns from him and makes her own. Guess it's payback for that whole bandit camp incident. But that's not all. It turns out that during all the commotion, Martina managed to find something.
It is! It has to be! This is a Claire Bible manuscript!
Lena immediately snatches it from her and finds that it contains instructions for a powerful spell. The perfect spell that could be useful against Konzel and Mazinda. But she finds herself unable to finish reading about the spell because...
These are my scribble drawings I drew when I was 3. They make me feel so nostalgic. Tee-hee.
Tee-hee my ass!
Lena's about to go into despair, but a signal fire from Seirun immediately wakes her up. Konzel and Mazinda are attacking, and she can't afford to wait until Small Wonder whips up another batch of medicine. She has to head back to Seirun now, powers or no powers. Along the way, Lena actually makes the discovery that the talismans actually bring her powers back, albeit in a very limited form. Back in Seirun, Konzel has pulled Prince Phil and the others into another dimension and forces them to battle. Lena arrives only to find that she is too late and that the others can't help her from where she is. Seems like now's a good enough time as any to use the talismans alongside her brand new spell. A spell that can slice through the astral plane, a spell more powerful than the Dragon Slave, the Ragna Blade.
The sword of darkness which can cut down the gods themselves!
You mean?
Ragna Blade!
Lena's Ragna Blade, while powerful, is still something she doesn't have full control over. And it's only through its sheer power alone that it manages to break through Konzel's barrier in the first place. It looks like Lena has saved the day once again, but it turns out when Konzel and Mazinda fled, they took Prince Phil with them. With Phil gone, it seems like Christopher has rightfully won his place at the throne, but something weird happens. Immediately after Phil's capture, Christopher renounces his claim to the throne and forms a search party. Something's fishy. Lena and the gang get a feeling that a certain someone might not be telling the whole truth here and immediately set off for Alfred's villa. Sure enough, Alfred lays it all out that he was the one behind the assassination attempt and that he made the deal with Konzel and Mazinda, hoping that his father would inherit the throne with him coming after. But immediately after this motive ran, uh-oh, double cross!
Curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal!
Konzel and Mazinda had no intention of keeping up their end of the bargain. Not just because they're heartless monsters, but because they are trying to take over Seirun themselves under the orders of a powerful monster named Gaav. Also, like Seirun before, they've taken a special interest in Lena, and so the battle for Prince Phil's soul begins. But not before Konzel sets up an awesome boss stage by lifting the villa up over Seirun. Lena and Gowry both make short work of Mazinda, leaving only Konzel. But Mazinda was a cupcake compared to him, and thanks to his dimension powers, none of their spells or attacks appear to be working on him. Not helped by the fact that Lena still isn't at full power, and Konzel takes full advantage of that with him sending Lena right over the edge. It appears all is lost with the death of our main character. Or is it?
Darkness beyond twilight, crimson beyond blood that flows. Buried in the stream of time is where your power grows. The fools who stand before me be destroyed by the power you and I possess. Dragon Slave!
Joke's on you, Konzel. She was only pretending. Lena got her powers back since it was Mazinda who sealed them, and killing her broke that seal. She just did the oldest trick in the book by fooling both her enemies and her friends. And her friends are... kinda pissed at her, to be honest.
Oh! Hey, what's the big idea?
Listen, Lena, can you consider my feelings a little next time?
Huh? Sorry.
Let's put a pin in that moment for now. But to wrap things up, Lena finishes Konzel off with a Ragna Blade, the Sky Garden begins to descend, and Lena performs a powered-up Dragon Slave that destroys the Sky Garden and saves Seirun. More or less.
Guess I overdid it a little bit.
The Ragna Blade arc is a great example of what makes Slayer's Next so good, because not only is it filled with lots of action, comedy, and even some intrigue here and there, it also introduces us to what exactly this season is going towards, pushing Lena to her limits. For most of the last season, it seems like Lena could have always solved her problems with a well-timed Dragon Slave. But Slayer's next goal is to show Lena that that's not always gonna work. Since this season is pitting her up against a lot more powerful enemies, she needs to learn new spells and tactics if she wants to beat them. Her learning the Ragna Blade represents her taking the next big step towards her being able to go head-to-head with all-powerful demon lords. And before anyone chimes in with, well, what about the Giga Slave, the all-powerful spell she used to defeat the almighty Shepherd Nigdo in the first season, why can't you use that? To which I answer with a hearty, next arc! So, we're halfway through the season, and you know what that means. That's right, 4-episode comedic filler arc. The search for the Claire Bible arc is an episode arc where Lena and the gang search for a Claire Bible manuscript in hopes of finding more powerful magic. They had enough trouble taking down Konzel and Mazinda with their current loadout, so they need bigger guns if they want to take on their boss, Gaav, who we learn is one of the 5 monster lords that serve Lord Shepherd Nigdo. Yeah, they kind of dropped the whole use the Claire Bible to make Zelgadis human plotline without fanfare, and it only really seems to come up if they want to strip Zelgadis of even more dignity. The episodes follow relatively the same structure. They get a lead on what could be a Claire Bible manuscript, brave whatever forces come in their way, whether they be Gaav's minions, other humans, or Martina's dumbassness. Find out the lead was just another red herring and have Lena finish everything off with a Dragon Slave. The first episode of this arc is easily my favorite, if only because it's the funniest. Lena and the gang get a treasure map which is said to lead to a powerful spellbook deep in the jungle, and they assume it could be a manuscript. After fighting off temple booby traps, one of Gaav's goofiest minions, the Yakuza gang they stole the map from, and the Shampoo twins here, they find out the methods of casting this spell is a little unorthodox.
Hey, cut it out! Don't look at me! Don't look! Turn around! Don't look!
Also, big props to the localization team transitioning from English singing to Japanese singing in the simplest yet most effective way possible.
I'm completely yours, pretty little me. In Japanese!
Psych! It was a spell meant for festivals, and Lena just sang a song in a skimpy outfit for no reason, and this episode ends with probably the first instance of Lena using a Dragon Slave out of sheer embarrassment. Next episode is a haunted house episode where the gang has to enter a cursed tower of dolls to follow a Claire Bible lead, and in order to traverse the tower safely, they have to dress up like stuffed animals. Which means more Zelgadis indignity!
Would you please stop calling me Mr. Bunny?
Oh, why? I think it suits you, Mr. Zelga Bunny.
Listen, you!
But this episode is interesting because it does some more foreshadowing with Zelos. He gets turned into a doll halfway through the episode, and yet when the climax of the episode comes around, he appears perfectly fine and gives Lena a hint on how to beat the monster by stating that the monster is an acquaintance of his. Interesting. Care to answer why that is, Zelos?
Well, to end this, I apologize.
Not much to say about the next episode, just Lena and Martina playing not tennis because it was the mid-90s and Aim for the Ace parodies were still in the zeitgeist. And the last episode of the arc is also kind of my least favorite of this season since it involves Lena and the gang trying to sneak into a village full of shrine maidens, and a lot of the humor is just ha 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 men wear dress jokes. Plus the ending of it is so dumb that I'm not even gonna deign it worth showing footage of. And with that humorous filler arc out of the way, now's the time for when things get really juicy, as it's the perfect lead-in to the Demon Dragon King arc. Frustrated at so many dead ends, Lena's party finally gets a break when Zelos tells them that a perfect copy of the Clare Bible exists in a temple near the town they are staying. When they get there, it turns out that this manuscript is a lot larger than they expected. Yeah, good luck finding the index section here. It is here they meet the manuscript's librarian, a mysterious old woman who refers to herself as Auntie Aqua. She agrees to lead them to the information they seek, but tells them that it will be a 3-day journey. Along the way, we get a nice moment between Lena and Gowry, and you know that moment from the Ragna Blade arc where we put a pin in? Well, here's where that comes into play.
It just seems so natural to think of you being with me.
Well, Lena, I am your protector after all.
So then, how long do you plan on protecting me?
I don't know. The rest of my life?
This season has been underlining Lena and Gowry's relationship as something more than just friends. And it's this scene where we begin to see the hints of that start to blossom into something more explicit. Having a friendship that blossoms into romance, especially when it's between a man and a woman, is something that I think most media doesn't really do all that well. It's something that can easily come off as just a romantic relationship for the sake of a romantic relationship. But here I think that it's done okay because I think it captures the awkwardness of such a thing pretty well, especially from Lena's perspective, who you wouldn't think would have a romantic bone in her body. Here's Gowry talking about how much he likes Lena's company and would like to be her traveling companion for as long as he can, and Lena's only thought is, oh brother, why am I feeling so weird all of a sudden? But the romantic tension will have to wait for now because Auntie Aqua has something important to tell Lena. She says she knows Lena has cast the Giga Slave before when she defeated Lord Jabernigdo, and shows her a scenario what would have happened if she had failed. The Giga Slave would have gone out of control and returned the entire universe into a state of nothingness, drilling the lesson in Lena's head that
Dangerous toys are fun, but you could get hurt.
So the Giga Slave isn't a last resort anymore, it's a no resort, and it makes it all the more imperative that Lena finds a spell that can beat Gaav without making such a big gamble. And she better find it fast because here he comes!
Yes, it's me, Gaav, the Demon Dragon King.
Gaav, the Demon Dragon King!
Wolf? Sniper Wolf?
Just look at that design. That hair, that trench coat, that sword that he barely uses. Gaav definitely looks like one who just exudes powerful anime big bad energy. And all of those qualities are multiplied when you've got the dulcet baritone of Dan Green coming out of those lips.
And with that damn Jabernigdo gone, my biggest obstacle is that accursed Hellmaster.
Gaav says that he came here in person because now he can kill Lena hidden away from the sight of another Dark Lord named Hellmaster. He wants to reign supreme over the monster race, explaining the actions of his minions in both Atlas City and Seirun, and Gaav needs to kill Lena before Hellmaster can get to her or else his plans are in jeopardy. Which might be a little difficult considering there's a minion of Hellmasters sitting right there just now.
Yeah, Zelos, you're a pretty high-level monster, aren't you?
Yeah. Oh well, looks like the cat's out of the bag.
The reveal of Zelos being a high-level monster is set up well, if a little obvious to the point they even make a joke about it later on. But it really helps put all of his actions in perspective. It all gives a reason how he would be teleporting in and out of nowhere and giving information to the rest of the party that no other person would be privy to. It's clear that he was nudging Lena and the gang towards the right direction where he could both foil Gaav's plans, and so they could also be in the right place for Hellmasters to use on their own. What exactly those plans are, we don't know yet because, according to Zelos, Hellmaster didn't tell him everything. A fight ensues with Martina showing up to almost get her ass killed, but it proves to be too much and Lena and the rest barely manage to escape with Auntie Aqua buying them some time. With that, Lena and Zelos give everyone the scoop, and Martina takes the revelation that her boy crush is an all-powerful evil monster surprisingly well.
Oh no! Oh, you lied to me! I'll never love again!
With the perfect manuscript destroyed, Lena and the rest are now down to their final option: finding the original Clare Bible. Before escaping, Auntie Aqua told them to head towards the Dragon Valley where the original Clare Bible is. With the help of a young pickpocket, they are able to find the path to reach the Dragon Valley and meet with the head of the tribe, Milgasia. Milgasia agrees to take them to the Clare Bible. not out of the goodness of his scaly heart, but because Zelos is with him and he doesn't want to risk pissing him off because how he nearly genocided the dragon race countless millennia ago. Just in case you needed a reminder that Zelos is both incredibly powerful and not a nice person. While they're being led to the Bible, Martina has recruited the same boy to lead her to the Dragon Valley so she can get to the Claire Bible first as some petty revenge on Lena. When the gang finally gets to the Bible, Gaav's minions attack the party and Lena enters the gate where the Bible is sealed, with Martina being dragged along for the ride. There Lena meets Milgacia and Auntie Aqua, who is the remaining soul of an ancient dragon killed by Gaav by the way, who leads her to the Bible. It is from here that Lena learns that she already possesses the power to kill a powerful monster. It turns out that the Ragna Blade and the Giga Slave come from the same source, the most powerful monster of all powerful monsters, the Lord of Nightmares. Since Lena now knows that all she needs to do is control the Ragna Blade to beat Gaav, she comes back to help her friends and is able to destroy the monster Sagrum, who is back for a beating with her newfound mastery of the Ragna Blade. Well, all seems to be well now. Everyone can just catch their breath and...
Oh, no you don't!
Oh, yeah, like Gaav was gonna let them take a break. He's here and he's prepared to lay the smackdown, putting Zelos out of commission for the rest of the season and tanking Zelgoddess's and Gowry's most powerful attacks. It is clear that the rest of the party is getting the Z-Warriors treatment while Lena can recharge. Lucky for them, Lena is able to charge up another Ragna Blade with her talismans and finally open up a hard-won can of ass whooping on the Dragon King. So now it seems like all is well and everyone can just catch their breath and oh, come on!
Hacks! I call hacks!
With Lena completely sapped and the others in no condition to fight, the only thing they can do is run away and hope they can fight another day. And hey, whatever happened to that kid that led Martina there? Where'd he go?
You!
So at last, the Puppet Master finally appears. I shouldn't be surprised, though, considering that you and I met a long time ago.
Looks like there's a new big bad in town, kids, and he's the most powerful little shit this side of the known fantasy universe. Please give a round of applause to the true big bad of Slayer's Next, Hellmaster Fabrizzo. Fabrizzo pretty much confirms everything that Lena and the rest knew, that through Zelos, he was just using him to further his plans by foiling Gaav's. And it turns out that Fabrizzo's plans are a lot more ambitious than Gaav's. Whereas Gaav wanted power to rule the world, Fabrizzo wants to destroy it and return it to the chaos where monsters ruled supreme. And what better way to do that than to force Lena to use her Giga Slave. And to just show how serious he is about all this, he's taking a hostage. And so begins the final and darkest arc of the season, the Hellmaster arc. The arc that takes Slayer's Next from a 9 to a 10. I mentioned before that Slayer's Next is all about pushing Lena to her limits, and while that could be interpreted as pushing her to her physical limits with how she needs to master new techniques in order to best more powerful opponents, it's really more about pushing her to her emotional limits. This is evident by the first episode of this arc being devoted to showing Lena feeling immense guilt for letting Gowry get captured. A scene that ties in perfectly to the two themes of Lena being pushed to her limits, alongside the theme of her trying to be honest about her feelings towards Gowry.
We've had enough adventures for 3 lifetimes. Maybe I just got used to him being with me all the time. Why am I crying?
Lena, however, knows she can't stay sad and must take action. She remembers the last thing Fabrizzo told them before spiriting Gowry away is that if they want Gowry back, they'll have to meet him in Cyrag, the place they fought Copy Rezo in the last season. Even though they know they are walking into a trap, it's still their best chance to save Gowry and stop Fabrizzo right then and there. Martina is also joining them because, hey, even dark story arcs in Slayer need their comic relief. And Speaking of Cyrag...
It's you!
Lena, Amelia, Mr. Zelgadis. It's been a while.
Sylphil.
Miss Sylphil? I guess you didn't see my white flag.
No trip to Cyrag will be complete without everyone's favorite shrine maiden, Sylphil. Plus, Stacia Crawford is back and still voicing her as sleepily as ever.
Then for dear Gowrie, I'll use violence, money, sex appeal. I'm willing to use any means necessary to rescue dear Gowrie from Hellmaster.
Can someone get this girl a latte? But in all seriousness, I think she's a much improved character than she was in the first season. Instead of being just the kind, helpful shrine maiden, she ends up fitting in a lot more in the comedic dynamic of the regular group.
Then did you steal the Sword of Light and then throw dear Gowrie in a river?
Why would I throw him in a river, Sylphil?
It almost makes me wish they introduced her a little earlier, but better late than never because she completely insists on accompanying Lena and the gang to Cyrag when she hears what happens to Gowrie. In fact, she takes the news that her childhood friend has been kidnapped by an all-powerful Lord of Evil surprisingly well. But as soon as they get on the road with their new party, they are attacked by one of Fabrizio's goons, who just happens to have Gowrie's Sword of Light. They have a fight, the goon gains the upper hand, but ends up hesitating for some reason while he has Lena dead to rights. But before we can question that, here comes a new ally!
I see you're up to your neck in trouble, as usual.
It can't be!
Mr. Zangulus? What are you doing here?
Hey, it's Zangulus! You know, the swordsman who fought Gowrie all those times in the last season. He still has a score to settle, and he's not going to let the rest of them get away without another rematch with Gowrie. With Zangulus's help, Lena is able to get a hit on the masked goon, only to find out Fabrizio has now brainwashed Gowrie to be his mindless minion, and he is teleported away before they can even attempt a rescue. Rescuing Gowrie has now become all the more vital. They finally make it to Cyrag, and Sylphil immediately notices something's wrong. Not only is there a giant temple where the Great Tree Lagoon once stood, the city also doesn't look like a city that was rebuilt, but rather how the city looked before it got turned into a crater. This is made all the more apparent once Sylphil's dead father shows up looking seemingly no worse for wear, only to reveal himself that he is nothing more than a spirit under control of Fabrizio. This bringing back a city from the dead just so they can be as spirits with no autonomy further motivates Lena, Sylphil, and the others to stop Fabrizio, and that they must set this right tonight. However, Lena tries to go it alone since she feels like it was her fault Gowrie got kidnapped in the first place, and that she's worried the others might not be up to task to face Fabrizio. Sylphil, on the other hand, will have none of it.
Anyway, I can't let Fabrizio torment the dead like this, so I have to let him have it with all I've got. Miss Lena?
Guess I have no choice. But in return, you gotta guarantee me you're gonna come back from this alive.
I will.
This scene kind of makes the perfect bookend to that scene with Lena and Amelia a couple of episodes back. It's not just that deep down Lena cares about her companions and will do anything for them. That feeling goes both ways. Even though Sylphil doesn't travel with the party as much as the others, she can still empathize with what Lena is going through and vows to help her wherever she can. This gets twofolded a few minutes later in a very dark scene where Fabrizio forces the souls of Cyrag to attack the two sorceresses, and Lena begins to freak out when she thinks she has killed a child. Ultimately, it's Sylphil who has to calm her down. They both get to Fabrizio's lair along with Zangulus, who joined up with them again, and after a tense stare down with Fabrizio, Lena decides that even though it's a long shot, to cast a charged up dragon slave at the little twerp. At first it has little effect until...
Let all the fools who stand before me be destroyed by the power you and I possess.
What?
Dragon Slave!
Yep, Little Miss Demure Shrine Maiden herself has learned and perfected the Dragon Slave, to the point it's the only black magic spell she knows and specializes in, and hey, wait a minute. Nah, it couldn't be. But of course that doesn't kill the Hellmaster, that'd be too easy. And to pay for this insolence, Fabrizio decides to do his darkest, most dastardly deed in the season thus far. He gathers all the members of Lena's party together and literally shatters their lives.
I'm okay.
Buried in the stream of time is where your power...
Almost got you.
It all comes down to Lena and Martina. And when Martina goes down, all bets are off.
You want to save him, don't you? Gowry, you love him, don't you? Even if the entire world is destroyed, it doesn't matter. Does it, Lena? Does it?
This is why Martina is not just a pointless comic relief. Her death is the final straw that pushes Lena to do what Fabrizio has been goading her to do all season. Because you don't mess with the comic relief and expect to get away scot-free.
I call upon thee, swear myself to thee. Let the fools who stand before me be destroyed by the power you and I possess.
It looks like Fabrizio is about to get exactly what he wanted, but I guess he's never heard of the gambler's fallacy because it turns out draw enough power from the Lord of Nightmares and you activate God mode.
I am darkness beyond blackest pitch, deeper than the deepest night. I am the sea of chaos, the source of all chaos. That is how you describe me. I am the Lord of Nightmares.
That's right. The Lord of Nightmares is not just the Lord of the monsters, but the Lord of all creation. That's not Lena Fabrizio is attacking, that's God herself. And she is pissed. Fabrizio takes this revelation surprisingly well.
All my calculations, my plan with all my perfectly set schemes, so close to its fruition, I wanna be destroyed!
I'll fix it so you get that way.
In hell!
And so Fabrizio learned the hard way that you shouldn't play with apocalyptic magic spells as the mother of all creation takes him over the knee and spanks him out of existence. So Fabrizio's dead, his spell over Cyrag is broke, and everyone, including Gowry, is no longer dead. Happy ending, right?
I appeared on this world because the one called Lena willed me to. She sacrificed all that she was in order to save that man's life, the human called Gowry.
In order for her to properly use the Gigaslave, Lena had to sacrifice her very existence in order to wield it properly. As a result, the Lord of Nightmares has to make payment and let Lena be swallowed up by the chaos. But Gowry, who just woke up I might add, is not going to take that lying down, and is fully prepared to pay it forward to Lena.
Maybe you look down on anyone who's weaker than you, but I... Lena! I need you!
And so the Lord of Nightmares, hearing the desperate plea and confession of love, said,
Okay.
There you have it, folks. The culmination of Lena and Gowry finally being honest with their feelings with one another and the blossoming of their true romantic relationship. That is, until they get back to the real world and don't remember a damn thing that happened in that void, so I guess they're back to a platonic relationship for now. I think this might have something to do with Hajime Kanzaka's self-admitted difficulties with writing romance scenes and wanting to keep those at arm's length, but that doesn't stop this from being a teensy bit of a cop-out. But I guess the whole point is that we do learn that the Lord of Nightmares might not be such a bad god after all. But who is to say? All that matters right now is that the day is once again saved by Lena Inverse and her band of idiots. You know, rewatching this again, it made me realize why Slayer's Next is so special. When it exists in my memory, I always think that it's the pinnacle of the Slayers franchise simply because it has some of the best comedy alongside some of the best action. But upon rewatching it, I learned that what makes Slayers Next so good is just how much it deepens the emotional bonds of the core cast. It did what every exceptional second season of an anime should, build on the foundation of its predecessor and improve it in every way. And don't let the fact that I summarized the whole season at length stop you from watching the season on your own. I actually skipped over some good bits in the interest of time, and you should experience them on your own. So with Slayers Next proving itself as an improvement over its predecessor in every way, it sounds like another could be even better, right? Well, it's complicated. Yes, Slayers Next was popular to warrant another season, but the thing is, that season of Slayers turned out to be one of the more divisive pieces of media in the Slayers franchise. Next year, baby.